Thank you for turning to page 121. Just a quick warning before we start this video. There are spoilers in this. If you plan on reading or playing in this module, I recommend you turn off the video now. Thank you. Today on page 121, we're going to address one of my favorite modules of all time, Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure by Rob Kuntz and Gary Gygax. This adventure is set in the fabled Mauer Castle, just outside the Greyhawk environs. In the inner map, you see, there she is. There's the location near Greyhawk. This was a campaign that was originally written by Rob Kuntz as part of his El Rahakit campaign, and a chance for Gygax to get out and play some characters. Originally, as they say in the intro, Gygax's characters went in and had some fun, and it's just a really fun module. If you're looking for an entire level where pretty much everything inanimate animates, this is your module. I'm going to go through the first level in today's video, discuss some insights and locations on the module itself, and then go forward on a future video on the lower levels. There are also expansions to this in later publications for later editions of D&D. I'll talk about that as well. So for right now, I'm present to you the beginning and the upper levels of the Mauer Castle, Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure. Starting layer 1, level 1, you see the map of the dungeon itself. And there's the table of contents for the module. This module, by the way, is hard to find. You can still buy it. It was published in 1984. Originally written in the early 70s as an opportunity for Gygax to take a break from DMing chores and play a player character, and maybe enjoy some, just to relax a little bit with the game. This module gives us our first real look at some of these characters. There were brief footnotes in them in one of the earlier D&D publications. One I'll be doing a video on down the line, but those were just thumbnail sketches. These give a little bit more detail on the characters, and it was a lot of fun to read back in the day. Greyhawk was still a growing campaign at the time, and it was a really nice opportunity to see some of the deep roots and what some of the characters did and how games were played back in that time. This is the first level of the dungeon, and basically you come up to the unopenable doors. There's a very long incline path that drops down through hidden by some shrubbery, and it comes to a pair of massive unopenable doors. The doors are 4 feet wide, 2 foot thick iron. There are no visible means of opening it. No key or no latch, no lock, no handles, no nothing. The best way to get through here is to have some kind of teleport, plane travel ability, or pass wall around the side of the doors. One of the characters in the campaign, Gygax's Mordenkainen, in fact, had the key of silver portals, and this allowed any door to be opened with a touch. So you simply press the key against the valves and they open wide. There's a Room of Misplaced Fortunes, which is the second encounter. Basically, when you enter the room, you make a save versus spells. If you fail your save, whatever item you have at hand, you immediately drop into one of the nearby holes in the floor. The characters will continue to do that for the next 1 to 6 segments. One item per segment, pulling off rings, taking out things out of pouches, daggers out of sheaths, things like that, until they suddenly realize, oh my gosh, what happened? When you finish dropping it, the holes instantly contract and crunch the items. This is a good way to get rid of that really powerful, nice sword that you walked in holding. You fail your saving throw versus it, you drop the sword down a hole, and you see it get destroyed. I'm not crazy about this kind of trap myself, but it was very common in older games, and I'm not going to say I didn't run it that way when I ran this adventure. I've run this adventure 2 or 3 times. I did use that at one point, but I only had one character fail a saving throw, and he only dropped the magic item at hand down a hole, which was, fortunately for him, just a lantern with a continual light stone in it. So he really didn't lose anything of value. The next encounter are the fighter frescoes. There are some candles lit in the room. You walk in, the candles can be put out by pretty much any way you want. Blow them out, the shifting air currents as the doors are open and closed. When a candle goes out, one of the fighter frescoes animates. There are 4 candles and 4 fighter candles, or fighter frescoes. When the fighter activates, his stats are given, and off you go into a nice combat. The next room is the rug room. There are a bunch of rugs hanging out here literally. One of them is a carpet of flying with a safety pin through it. Be careful about pulling the safety pin. One thing I guess I should have said earlier is there's got to be spoils in this thing since I'm actually showing you the pages. So if you don't want spoils on this module, please don't watch the video. I apologize. I'll try to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this as well. Definitely want to be aware there are going to be spoilers in this. Okay, the next room you go into is the Weaver's Chamber, number 5. Arlie the Weaver is there. Oh, Arlie's the guy that's making all these rugs that have these various powers and abilities. Arlie himself is a polymorphed ogre mage. Back in the day, an ogre mage was a challenge, even for a high-level game like this. I love ogre mages. I've kicked their hit dice up a little bit. This one's listed at 5+2. I've made ogre mages as high as 12 and 15 dice. They're just one of my favorite monsters, and why the heck shouldn't I enjoy them? If the mage, ogre mage or Arlie the Weaver is defeated or made to flee, you find a box that has various items in it. All these items are essentially what we would now call cursed items. They have a good thing, which is, for instance, the first one is a girdle of stone giant strength, but it's actually a girdle of femininity and masculinity. The cap is a cap of quick action. It's actually a cap of evil. It changes your alignment to the opposite alignment. Things like that all the way down the line. We did go through some of these items when I gave them out, and the ones that one of my players particularly wanted to keep were the socks that were socks of firewalking. They're actually socks of sweating that make you sweat out and get damage because of sweating so profusely. He liked the idea. I had actually made them not only fire walking, but fire resistance, just like the ring. The player character liked that idea so much that he actually quested to find a cleric who could actually cast a remove curse that would make these socks something he could wear. Unfortunately, that player has long since moved away and that character is out of my campaign, but it was a lot of fun. So you got a little side quest out of that one by an item that should have been a cursed throwaway item that a player ended up wanting to hang on to. You never really know what's going to happen once you start the game. In the next section, you have some interesting rooms. The tapestry room, a bunch of tapestries hanging on the wall. My players spent a lot of time being nervous in this room, thinking the tapestries were going to be cloakers or something and wrap around them. They're really not. This is just some loot that you can carry out, big bulky loot. So fortunately, when my players had a boardable hole, they were able to put the tapestries in the hole and get most of the value for them. I didn't give them listed value. I gave them a little less. Room 7 has the Amber Pool in it. This is a nasty little encounter. Anybody that goes into the pool or even just sticks a hand in gets attacked by a new monster in this module called Hetfish. Basically, they're really, really hot and they swarm you like piranha. They don't even roll for damage. They just give damage. It's an interesting monster. Best way, obviously, to avoid the monsters, stay away from the pool, which is what my players ended up doing. I believe they tossed a hunk of meat into there and saw the Hetfish reaction and didn't go anywhere near it. Room 8 has the ever-changing chalice. This is a real time eater. Basically, the chalice changes colors. You can spend time trying to figure out what each color means and what the pattern is and things like that, and the ultimate answer is doesn't mean anything. It's just an interesting chalice that changes colors. It's worth about 6,000 gold pieces if you find the right person. A couple of empty chambers are also in this layer, specifically 9 and 14. The decorated, or 9, 11, 12, and 14. You have a decorated chamber, which just shows an artist's representation of the Amber Pool in room 7. 13 is a bronze statue room. There's 2 bronze statues in here. This actually made my players very nervous. They were expecting the bronze statues to animate. They didn't. It's a red herring, no pun intended, Hetfish. It was just there to keep the players on their toes. Next you come to an empty chamber. Leads to a secret door leading down to the lower levels. We'll get to the lower levels in a future video. Get to the deserted chamber. There's a blood mark on the floor. That is a real time eater too. The blood mark can cause some. It activates. The blood mark protects you from a spear trap in the next area. The encounter is kind of detailed, and it's better to just read it. The spears that come at you just do damage. It's interesting, but I didn't really use this in my game. I thought it would just eat up too much time. There are great draperies in the 16th room, and these just basically divide the room, and there's a fairy fire permeating the area. The ivory pillars, these are carved from huge elephant tusks. These are pretty sweet. My players spent a lot of time trying to figure out what kind of structural damage they'd do if they were able to get these pillars out. Ultimately, they ended up abandoning it. The viewing stands, this leads above the great room. This is kind of interesting in that it would be above the great throne room, the statue area, would be viewing stands. Again, this is just kind of a time eater. The throne statue area, this is the make or break part of this adventure. I really love this encounter. Let me change the page here. Here we go. I love that picture of the golem. You'll note he has a sword in his left hand and an odd-looking whip in the right hand. The odd-looking whip is a whip of cockatrice feathers. Upon being hit, save versus petrification or turn to stone. You also have the fighter statue and the wizard statue. Those are not anything that animates. The golem, of course, is an iron golem that animates with the sword and the cockatrice whip. This is a really cool encounter. No magics affect the golem, and the only weapons that can hurt him are the sword in the fighter's hand and the dagger in the magic user's hand. If the player characters approach the statues, touch them, the hands will turn to flesh, hand over the weapon, and then the statue goes back to being a statue. It took my players a long time to figure this one out, and I got several casualties in this encounter. I also was able to petrify a couple player characters with this. This was an encounter I ran. The players left and then came back 3 times before they actually defeated this particular encounter. In the preview, Gary Gygax wrote, he talks about how Mordenkainen himself was actually turned to stone by the whip with the cockatrice feathers. I really, really love this encounter. I've used it several times, running the module on 3 separate occasions, and then I had them return to this room several times till they were able to defeat it. This is one of my favorite encounters in any D&D module. After this, we're going down to the 2nd level. Now the 2nd level I'll deal with in a second video, sometime in the near future. And then there's a 3rd level beyond that where you find out more about the history of the place and who's actually kind of orchestrating things. In the back, though, there's some interesting appendices. There are some new monsters given, but this is the part I was most excited about back in 1984. The pre-generated characters. Mordenkainen, Erag, Bigby, and Rigby. These are all very famous names in Greyhawk. Very well-known characters. This is the first time we got any kind of good look at these player characters. Of course, these characters, as they say in the opening of the module, these characters are not as they were when they were played. These are published versions of those characters, but still, it was a lot of fun to actually get a look at some of these fabled characters, even back in 1984. Some of these did end up being NPCs in my campaign, and do pop up now and again. They have much lesser role than they did in Gygax's for obvious reasons. I have my own analogs of the Circle of 8 and things like that. I'm not going to have them get usurped by a bunch of non-player characters. So, that's it. That's a look at the 1st level of Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure. There she is again. As I said, this module is available on DriveThruRPG. I don't work for DriveThruRPG. I just like them, and I like to let people know about them. They have it as a PDF or a print on demand, or you can buy a package that allows both. That's it for today on page 121. Thank you for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. See you next time. Well, that closes the book on another episode of page 121. Please leave your comments below, and if you enjoyed what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.